For every silly fella spreading joy and whimsy across the world, there's a devious little trickster sowing malice and bad vibes to counteract their good efforts. Tragically, America is plagued with many of them. One of the worst variants of these people are simply racist. No one likes a racist. A majority of American racists are amongst some of the most terminally stupid, drool-pilled knuckle-draggers that inhabit this nation. And unfortunately, the catalog of prejudiced body-pillowed bandits doesn't end with Adam Waffen or the Ku Klux Klan, because this video is dedicated to one of the alarmingly lesser-known peculiar groups of body odor brigadiers, the Patriot Front. Before we lose even more faith in humanity, appreciation to this guy right here for the suggestion.
Who agreed to be in this show?
Logan Paul?
Logan Paul?
And the sweaty guy from the Charlottesville, right?
The sweaty guy from the Charlotte...
Grasping the lore regarding the grotesque birth of the Patriot Front requires a disappointing degree of knowledge on this topic. The most important setting is Charlottesville, Virginia, where in 2017 the massive Unite the Right rally was being organized. But Zhenova, the Patriot Front, didn't exist at the time of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, so why is it relevant? Listen to your boy here. The explicit point of the rally was to protest the dismantling of historical landmarks built in remembrance of the political and military figures who served under the Confederate States of America. And before we get into any tirade over that, I just gotta hit you with states' rights to what? States' rights to do what? What was the Union stopping them doing? I don't know. However, underneath their concerned narrative, there was a hidden purpose to the rally. It was designed to be an attendance call for every alt-right organization across America. Charlottesville rally cry, in theory, would gather sympathetic individuals and groups in order to display strength in numbers, and even serve as a message to the general public of America, saying, hey, we're out there, and you should always remember that. That would be the true victory scenario desired from the Unite the Right rally, an alliance of these white supremacist alt-right groups into a united front, no matter how unlikely it is that such a broad, notoriously polarized movement such as white supremacy would ever unify. Despite being an initial success, with a high turnout from a mix of various alt-right, neo-fascist, and white supremacist organizations, everything fell apart at the most pivotal moment in the movement's modern history. Some of the organizations that responded to the rendezvous at the Unite the Right rally included the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the League of the South,
Do I look like I know what a JPEG is?
the National Socialist Movement, along with other groups such as the Three Percenters and Vanguard America. In reference to when I asked why Charlottesville is relevant, it's because of Vanguard America. Although not the most numerous, influential, or powerful group present at the rally, they arrive with a group of members under the leadership of Thomas Rousseau. In the midst of the hostility and chaos on the second day of protest, a state of emergency had been declared by the governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe. I think that's how you say it. In a single moment, everything came to a halt. The sound of screeching tires, horrified screaming, and pleas for help had pierced the intense atmosphere. A man named James Alex Fields Jr. had just deliberately accelerated his car into a crowd of activists, injuring 35 people and murdering one woman. Her name was Heather Danielle Heyer. After crashing into multiple vehicles and reversing into the same crowd, and then fleeing the scene, the Virginia State Police pursued Fields Jr. with a Bell 407 helicopter. Tragically, the pursuit resulted in the death of 2 state troopers after the pilot lost control due to a freak aerial phenomena. The names of these 2 officers are Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and Burke M.M. Bates. I'm not an internet edgelord, or at least a good one, right? But I sincerely hope that James Field Jr. gets impaled by a fucking shank in prison. I really hope we can all rally behind that, right? Because not only did he kill an innocent woman, but he also got 2 police officers who, as far as we know, were good guys, killed. I digress. This was the turning point of the rally. The Virginia State Police had been intentionally waiting for acts of ultra-violence to occur in order to justify using extraordinary measures to end the rally and clear the area. This doctrine would later receive heavy criticism and backlash from the public, and even investigations and lawsuits would arise from it. In reality, if the Virginia State Police had intervened sooner, it would have more than likely prevented any escalation and may have even saved the lives of Heather and the two officers. The end of the conflict in Charlottesville resulted in further polarization of America. There were a lot of good people there who acted to protect and help those in need and do the right thing. And there were people waving swastikas around and threatening to harm innocent people. I'll let you decide who was in the right here. You know, use your good moral judgment. And I don't even care about sounding biased. I'm not going to avoid directly calling it out. If you're an ethno-nationalist, you're a loser. Remember Vanguard America? Yeah. James Alex Fields Jr. is a member, and by wearing their related insignia, he practically served as a giant, shining billboard for retaliation against the organization. That discovery was a knife through Vanguard America's heart, and it crippled the organization, which culminated in waves of membership desertion. Of course, when you have a hyper-radicalized political movement, there's going to be power struggles and splinter movements. One of these Vanguard America deserters, Thomas Rousseau, goes on to found the Patriot Front after Charlottesville. I told you it all ties in, right? He was present in Charlottesville, and he was a high-ranking member of Vanguard America, and now he's the leader of the Patriot Front. But who is this guy? Is he some dangerous, schizophrenic war criminal? No. In fact, Adam Waffen is almost more threatening. Thomas Rousseau was raised in the moderate suburban kind of town extension of Coppell, Texas. Located in the northwestern part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area, he attended and graduated from Coppell High School, where he contributed to his local school newspaper as a staff cartoonist and writer.
Later years in high school, because during that time frame, I went to Coppell High School, and it was a very nice city. Very, very valuable school that people would come from all over the world to get their kids into the school district. And a lot of them came from India, a lot of them came from Nepal and Korea.
Thomas had an unremarkable average American adolescence experience, hailing from a life of stability and growth that middle-class suburban Americana is famous for.
They were not extremely political people. I do think, my parents raised me as well as can be considered under any reasonable circumstance. They gave me a lot of opportunities and a lot of good influence. My parents were divorced for most of my life from a very early age. So perhaps some impression was made on the difficulties of the modern American family unit, as well as the role that the government via the judicial system plays.
His life was devoid of struggle and instability as much as we know. The town of Coppell really boasts an impressive, objectively high standard of living compared to the national average, with a safe environment and convenient access to high-quality educational institutions and healthcare. With that in mind, Rousseau wasn't a product of an ignorant and unstable broken family living in a trailer park in a backwater dying town. Rather, he was the exception to the ignorant, dumb, southern, backwater racist rule. Essentially, our boy Tommy is the ideological far-right equivalent of those middle-class suburban white teenagers who believe they're from the hood and do nothing but blast Chief Keef all day. Although, shout out to my boy Chief Keef. An unknown catalyst caused Rousseau to slowly become radicalized with society, quickly becoming an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump during his 2016 presidential campaign. His disillusion with American politics began significantly affecting the content he published to his high school newspaper. Just as a reminder, we're going back 1 year before Charlottesville to see what Rousseau here has been up to. An unfortunately entertaining aspect of this study in patheticism is Rousseau's descent into insanity is chronologically measurable via his contributions to his local high school newspaper. Reading his publications allows you to unravel the process behind a teenage boy's radicalization into a career white supremacist. The prime example of this first publication, dated February 28th of 2016, Diversity Club brings friendly atmosphere to students of varied backgrounds. Yippee! I know, it's kind of adorable, come on. For Timmy, though, it wasn't adorable. It was a journalistic career, and he couldn't He couldn't keep spending his life talking about sunshine and rainbows. Timmy needed groundbreaking stories for America. That's why next month he released a controversial opinion piece about American actors of African descent feeling underrepresented in the Oscars. That's really strange, right? I wonder how Rousseau can relate to that demographic experience and unique culture. Oscars boycotted for fallacious causes. False victimhood breeds misinformation. Cue the comically large foghorn for a big, beautiful fucking note. This article was genuinely an interesting read because the entire time I was imagining Ben Shapiro's malicious tint, Arapas Neb, playing devil's advocate about a reform to the Oscars or an African-American alternative to it. That may seem a little over the top, but I'm not kidding you. There really isn't much of a complete context provided, let alone a nuanced opposing opinion. Instead, we're just present to Rousseau half-monologuing about his decision to violently veto this devilish cabal of black people poisoning America with their performances in media.
Jada Smith and her husband Will Smith have unofficially led the pack of celebrities to boycott the award show by not attending. They claim that the lack of diversity is an obvious case of discrimination. The Smiths will perceivably be relaxing in their $40 million home instead. Calvin Brodus Jr., also known infinitely better as Snoop Dogg, has spoken out on the issue, saying that he agrees with Jada Smith in that there should be an awards show only for black people. It seems there are some promoting segregation rather than integration.
You can tell by this article, this began with bad intentions from the first keystroke. Because who sincerely cares about the property value of Will and Jada Smith's house when reading an article about diversity and representation in the Oscars? Breaking news, America. Don't shit your pants over this one. Famous actors that have been performing for decades have a boatload of fucking money!
To argue that the Oscars are prejudiced and behind the times is ridiculous, because at the same time they are fawning over movies such as The Danish Girl, which depicts a man in the 1920s with a firm belief that he is a woman.
Adulthood is just so pleasing in some ways because now I can observe teenage angst unravel from an outside perspective because in the middle of this article, Thomas just throws in a jab at transgender people in a completely unrelated addition to his argument. I get it, right? Shocker, a teenage boy from Texas is making fun of transgender people, but just keep your eye on the prize, little man.
The Oscar winners and nominees are determined by a large group of 6,000. These voters serve for life. Because this is so, demographic changes within the group are going to be glacially slow, compared to the changing demographics of America as a whole. Even so, Academy has scrambled to add more diversity to the group in a clear act that contradicts the statements of various boycotters. Homogeneity does not always equal prejudice. These actors and directors have, in a sense, bit the very hand that feeds them, by claiming that the movie industry is racist, yet it is the very industry that has given them their positions of wealth and fame.
The last paragraph is particularly interesting because that logic applies to anyone who has ever received a paycheck from any form of employer. I would pay to see the interaction between this dude and a single mother of 4 children who has to draw and quarter her $582 paycheck from Denny's bi-weekly. If my editor decides maybe remembers to add the link to the description, you can read this article here. On to our final article because I'm here to make fun of neo-Nazis, not critique a radicalized teenager's high school newspaper. Making America great again! One vote at a time. One vote at a time, brother. It's coming for me. The ligma is gonna get me. This was the final publication from Thomas Rousseau, an energetic opinion piece about a controversial presidential candidate. I was sincerely not expecting this article to be this insane. He must have had a miserable senior year, just absolute incel oppression. Because he's apparently completely lost it since the beginning of this year. So you know how a core principle of America is ingrained rights of freedom of speech and self-expression, right? Or supposedly on paper. I'm sincerely not opposed to anyone, including Rousseau, voicing their opinions, but this entire article could have given Joseph Goebbels a run for his money. The article begins with a bold personal statement from Timmy, stating, "Donald Trump is the best choice out of all of the current running presidential candidates, and I will be voting for him on November 8th. God, it's 3 in the morning, and I'm trying to voice the script, and my throat's just absolutely not having it. I'm starting to sound like RFK. You have to drink the raw milk, Thomas. That's the only way you can save white America. Anyways, he continues by portraying a narrative of Donald Trump selflessly assuming the role of an uncorrupted leader of the people, battling on behalf of the American people against not only the Democratic Party, but the establishment Republicans, for the restoration of integrity, truth, and transparency of the nation.
The GOP has lost touch with the public, and Trump has broken that stereotype, much to its dismay. While Texas Senator and former presidential candidate Ted Cruz and others like him said, "I'm fighting for the Constitution." Repeatedly, Trump says, "I'm fighting for you." That is what the American people needed so desperately to hear.
A little bit of glazing? Definitely. But when you ask an individual who's been consumed by politics about their favorite individual, it's almost guaranteed that they portray that politician as the God Emperor of mankind. So, despite his statements being completely deranged, they're not abnormal.
Clinton has adopted the neoconservative ideology of military interventionism and will support more meaningless conflicts and senseless loss of life. Trump seeks an end to much of these conflicts, which have been spurred on by the establishment's illogical hatred for Russia and a desire for regional conflicts with the nuclear superpower.
And to no one's surprise, he then begins attacking and demonizing Hillary Clinton and George Soros. Don't get me wrong, they are evil. But on the contrary, no one has stormed the White House in the name of Hillary Clinton. Although, as of current, Timmy has denounced his former Trumpite views in favor of a third position.
Did you vote, and what's your opinions on Donald Trump?
I didn't vote for Trump, and I don't support Trump. I support some of the things that Trump says, obviously deporting all the illegals. Yeah. We'll see if he does it. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath.
I doubt he will. I was supported Trump over Kamala, but I ended up not voting. I was going back and forth on it, Then
that's your right.
I just couldn't. He just sold out too much to another little country.
I think Trump is deeply flawed, but I think there's Trump the man, there's Trump the symbol, and then everybody has their own little Trump in their head that kind of reflects their own biases. He's kind of an interesting character in that regard. But he represents a larger culture, which I think is very interesting. I think what he's done to broaden the political landscape is very important, but at the same time, not nearly enough. His enslavement to Zionist interests is incredibly worrying, and it undermines almost everything he says otherwise that might be considered patriotic.
Although I sincerely do wonder who he voted for. I can't imagine RFK Jr. because if the two were to ever hypothetically meet, I could only imagine that the brainworm rage from Kennedy Mark III would have caused him to slap the fucking estrogen right out of Timmy Rousseau. To be honest, if you've seen it once, you've seen it all. For the final segment of this opinion piece, everyone knows that a picture paints 1,000 words. Of course. So allow me to use this image to paint 1,000 words.
Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton is being advised on foreign policy by George Soros. Soros is an international billionaire who has made his billions manipulating currency and destabilizing nations. Clinton is the visible tip of the large corrupt iceberg that promotes globalism and the self-interest of the international elite, such as Soros.
There is nothing to comment on. This is perfect, and I could not have written a better ending personally. And he could have made this any easier for me. Although, if I have to review any more chronically online high school or opinion pieces, I may sincerely blow my shit smooth off. It really is tragic though. Yakub created exemplary Caucasians such as Ozzy Osbourne and Ryan Gosling, and I'm stuck covering Adolf Buchler over here. Thomas Rousseau left a really awful legacy to base his young adult life on, because this dude fucked up so badly that he permanently tarnished his high school's Wikipedia article. Anyways, in the aftermath of this cesspit of cringe, I want to provide you a comprehensive understanding of what the Patriot Front is, and then we'll examine what they're up to right now.
There's gotta be one real nigga. Can the real nigga please stand up? There has to be one real nigga left in America, in this damn country!
The only ounce of credit I can begrudgingly grant to this posse of pasty pole smokers is that they're one of the few white supremacist organizations whose membership doesn't consist of 80% Filipinos. So, what are the demographics and ideology of the Patriot Front? Let's talk about it. The Patriot Front does not believe in restoring America back to a previous era, as Rousseau believes that the flaw within American society began with the founding fathers of the nation. Instead, the Patriot Front believes that white Anglo-Saxon Protestants should be the sole people that can be categorized as belonging to American heritage and identity, and the nation of America should serve as an ethno-state homeland for these people. Their ideology narrows down the list of acceptable population down to an extreme margin, just on ethnicity alone.
We're gonna build a new settlement. We'll have a happy new life and we'll have equal rights for all. Except blacks, Asians, Hispanics, Jews, gays, women, Muslims, everybody who's not a white man. And I mean white, so no Italians, no Polish, just people from Ireland, England, and Scotland. But only certain parts of Scotland and Ireland. Just full-blooded whites. No, you know what? Not even whites. Nobody gets any rights. America.
So it can be assumed that recruitment restrictions are deregulated to accommodate for other Caucasian ethnicities and non-Protestant Christians. White supremacist organizations consistently struggle with recruiting efforts in the US due to their own restrictions on the acceptable ethnicity for membership. Thus, they are often forced to concede and make exceptions to bolster their ranks. You have to remember that their kin, Atomwaffen, is crawling with genuine Satanists, so take their supposed quote-unquote purity with a grain of salt. We know that any individuals belonging to any of these categories are strictly prohibited from joining the Patriot Front. I've heard rumors on Reddit that the Patriot Front considers exceptions for indoctrinating mixed-race individuals that possess at least half Caucasian ethnic background, and if they are only to denounce the rest of their heritage. If you are one of those people, it'd be more productive to wear a sign saying Jews for Hitler. It would save everyone time from trying to figure out if you have an intellectual disability or if your mother just beat you with a garden hose until you are a more convenient dumbass to be around. If you're curious as to how the leadership values reflect on the organization, Rousseau must have gone through a surgical operation to remove a fourth of his spine because he nestled his little melon head right in between his thighs and got to work, describing himself as a quote-unquote respected leader of the men.
I think a lot of that is because, I am a leader of the men, but I share every burden that they do. I believe thoroughly in the principles of leadership. I'm really passionate about history.
He even went on to list some of his qualifications to support his leadership, including citing his knowledge on history. Not even going to specify, just all of fucking known history. This is giving me an excruciating amount of secondhand embarrassment because this must be how everyone views people who play games from Paradox Interactive. Rousseau goes on to mention some historical figures from American history who've inspired him.
I can look back to the leadership of, Andrew Jackson, George Washington, George Patton, all these other leaders and how they worked with their men and why they were so respected.
George Washington is the first figure to be mentioned, which is basic, but arguably fair. The two that really get me, though, are Andrew Jackson and George S. Patton. This neo-fascist Portland twink just explained how the guy who's responsible for the genocide of indigenous peoples and beat his fucking political opponents with a cane as source of his inspiration. And don't forget this guy. I don't want to tarnish the name of the lieutenant general as if he wasn't a fucking psychopath, but he most certainly was a sincere lunatic. This video obviously isn't about him, but it's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Just search up George Patton slapping incident and have fun. Oh god, my voice. Now that we've discussed Rousseau's feelings of fatedness and the strict recruitment restrictions imposed by the Patriot Front, let's examine how they recruit new members throughout the United States of America. The first method of recruiting they employ is in-person activism. The Patriot Front doesn't possess the same reputation as the KKK or the Aryan Brotherhood, which grants them more tolerance from local authorities compared to similar organizations when choosing venues to hold events or demonstrations at. On Jake Shields' Fight Back podcast, Rousseau discusses how the organization spends a majority of their funding providing logistics and organizing their elaborate events.
Yeah, and the coordination, people think, wow, how can you be so coordinated? You look back years in the past, you look back at 2018, 19, 2020, we weren't marching in step, we didn't have drums, our flagpoles were shorter,
You've been evolving as you go, learning, growing.
And it's culture building, and we have a culture in the organization that assimilates people into this higher frame of discipline and mindfulness. And that's something that we've built, and it's, and we act in such a way because we want to reflect what we want society to look like. We are strong and coordinated and immensely, deeply in love with our country because that's what we want more people to be like.
Yeah, no,
These demonstrations often prioritize aesthetics and unified choreography, which present the organization in a more professional light compared to their competitor.
Everybody has an opinion on our marches, but they fail to realize that our marches are engineered to be spectacles that everybody is then compelled to have an opinion on.
Yeah.
This type of confident public grandstanding and hate speech allows for sympathetic individuals to feel more comfortable with approaching the organization and joining. Despite their pristine flagpoles and lockstep marching choreography that rivals K-pop dance routines, Timmy Rousseau and his Patriot Front, akin to their more honest and equally inbred cousins Atomwaffen, will jump on any opportunity to bludgeon an innocent person to death just to appease their ideological obsession. The second method of recruiting involves infiltrating sympathetic online communities and spreading propaganda throughout any media possible.
People, and you can have a proper upright cultural landscape, because especially with the youth, this is incredibly impactful years. If you're a young man, you look at your father, and what kind of man do you want to see in your father? Somebody with peers, somebody with a mission, somebody with a goal in life, somebody who's held to a higher standard. It's incredibly important in these community spaces that we build and that we provide, help young men who don't have families gain the confidence and experience to go out and, whether it's financially, whether it's personally, whether they need to just be generally better in life, we provide that impetus.
Or engaging with individuals that utilize a protective anonymity to voice similar opinions.
Yeah, people are afraid to get into this kind of scene because of the risks they'll run as an individual. The thing is, if we all have that mentality, it's like the herd of a gazelle. The one straggler will get eaten, but if they stay together, if we go ahead and risk collectively joining organizations, not saying you have to put your face and name out there and dox yourself, but you can join Patriot Front and remain anonymous. You can join Return to the Land and remain anonymous. You can do things in your own area. You don't have to spend all of your resources in the struggle, but if you spend something, and the average person in our circles spend some of their time and resources, then as a whole, it's not as easy to attack us.
This method is more common amongst modern white supremacist movements like Atomwaffen or the late Vanguard America. Now that we've discussed how they get their membership and their motivations behind protesting the very existence of the country they claim to love and adore, what's the Patriot Front up to now? The Patriot Front has increased activity across the United States in recent years, hosting events and political demonstrations throughout the nation. 2 months ago, they were in Kansas City, Missouri, to virtue signal during Memorial Day weekend, interrupting a solemn event where Americans of every race and creed find a moment of peace to honor their loved ones who served in the U.S. Armed Forces. I can assure you that the Patriot Front wasn't there to do that. They were present to be media whores and garner attention for their cause. You must remember that self-excluding racist organizations such as Atomwaffen Division or the Patriot Front must attract a very specific archetype of person who more often than not needs to be coaxed out of an echo chamber and made to feel safe to express their pathetic and hateful views. Akin to their relatives, cockroaches, white supremacists prefer more out-of-the-way places to hide. For example, the Patriot Front has been entrenching their presence and infrastructure network throughout Tennessee, even holding demonstrations in Nashville, Tennessee, July of 2024.
It was an investigation that would eventually lead us across the state to this large compound being built by a hate group right here in Tennessee. A compound where members train for battles that sometimes play out on the streets of America.
Their compound, located around Tellico Plains, Tennessee, is almost certainly a den of debauchery and degenerative behavior. But you should seek comfort in knowing that there are Florida crack dens with more capable warriors than whatever this homoerotic abridged version of Fight Club is offering. To be entirely honest, National Geographic couldn't have done a more professional job observing and recording these chimps grappling and fondling each other's sweaty bodies. If you find your first reaction having felt intimidated or anxious, don't worry, a majority of this monkey business is the far-right equivalent of North Korean propaganda footage. Half of these neo-Nazis are teenage boys that would piss their pants if they were greeted with a gat. The other are bored tweakers recruited from trailer parks, looking for something to do after getting fired from their job for watching porn in the janitorial closet.
We are Americans, we are not white Americans, because there are no other kind of Americans than those who are white and from Europe.
Also, I'm sorry, but this guy's voice is just grating as shit. Timmy Rousseau could possibly be the aborted chimera byproduct of this dude in an alternative universe neo-Nazi German 985. One of the most entertaining aspects regarding Thomas Rousseau is how his appearance reminds me of every millennial male coffee shop worker equipped with a man bun to ever exist. A beard that wispy is the product of a man approaching his 30s, still trying to locate his own masculinity.
This isn't your, granddad's KKK. This isn't the old school white supremacists. These guys are smart. I'll give them that little bit of credit, is they're smart in how they approach it.
What upsets me more than anything is how authorities, journalists, and bystanders will narrate the every action of these pasty patriots as if they're a groundbreaking, innovative threat to American society. Most of the Patriot Front members are so incompetent that they couldn't shoot jizz into a sock even if they had a scope taped to their pecker. In reality, they're mostly looking for attention or self-validation from other sweaty losers who occupy their echo chamber. A mini investigation on Thomas Rousseau, published by KREM2 News on YouTube, covers the same timeline and trajectory of mantle depression as I did, however in a less flashy and exponentially more Hearst sensationalism fear-mongering fashion.
Thomas Rousseau grew up outside of Dallas, Texas, and began showing signs of white nationalist beliefs as a young teenager. In fact, this article in the Texas Observer newspaper says the FBI has been monitoring Rousseau since he was still a student in high school, where he often wrote opinion pieces in support of conservative topics.
Maybe I'm the one lost in the irony here, but it is disrespectful to present me a picture of this elite Geek Squad operator and expect me to give him equal treatment as fucking Arkan Jelko Rajnatovich. Looking at this shiny Pokemon of fetal alcohol syndrome enrages me to the point of ultra-violence, of yearning to microwave a handful of quarters and throw them at him like Rexplode from Invincible. I digress. Maybe I'm being dramatic. This staggeringly bare-bones coverage of Rousseau's history portrays him as someone to be feared. This could be coming from a place of ignorance, although I highly doubt that. But I would be willing to bet a fat stack of dead presidents that the FBI doesn't have units on standby to detain Timmy at a moment's notice. Instead, they probably assigned those few grueling years of exposure to second-hand cringe to some desk jockey intern. While nationwide mainstream media can be relied on to see events and viewpoints from the establishment's POV, how does Thomas Rousseau speak for himself in front of who I believe to be the result of Xi Jinping's attempt to recreate Joe Rogan? The beginning of this video can be summed up with two far-right skinwalker influencers trying to their damnedest not to self-report on their neo-Nazi background.
So I graduated high school, and shortly after that summer, I went to the Charlottesville rally, and of course it was chaotic. It was very eye-opening for me. I was very green in a lot of these things, and I learned what not to do in many ways. I learned that there is something valuable in nationalism there, and I met a lot of great people. You meet a lot of people who aren't so great, and things were kind of chaotic back then.
There's some scammy people in the industry. You learn real quick. There are some legitimate people that don't offer anything. But you learn the
difference. You learn who is and who isn't. And I was able to discern that, yes, there is something genuine in patriotism.
This podcast is clearly tailored to a very specific audience, white supremacists and people sympathetic to the far-right ideology. However, they're speaking with such careful and meticulous mannerisms because everyone, including YouTube, knows who and what they are. Everybody is just waiting and wanting for them to slip up on public media and say, "I sure do hate black people and the Jews." Rousseau mentions that he has developed and nurtured a culture within the Patriot Front.
We didn't have drums. Our flagpoles were shorter.
You've been evolving as you go, learning and growing.
And it's culture building, and we have a culture in the organization that assimilates people into this higher frame of discipline and mindfulness, and that's something that we've built. And it's and we act in such a way because we want to reflect what we want society to look like. We are strong and coordinated and immensely deeply in love with our country.
He didn't certainly fucking create American culture, so what culture could he be speaking of? Well, hold on. I have an inkling. I think I know what it is. Is this the culture you're so proud of, Timmy?
Life, liberty, victory!
Good take right there.
Seed
high. Let's go.
Any more commentary on this subject is just pissing up a rope. Let's move on.
Rest assured, we will have total death. We will have Hyperborea to return to, and we will have state-mandated big titty goth girlfriends for every Aryan motherfucker on the planet, nigga, no cap. Pink nail army, you know what to do. Hail Hitler and peace out, nigga.
Let's start with addressing the elephant in the room here, their drip, or rather their lack thereof. Timmy Rousseau decided on an aesthetic that looks like Dickies workwears, is collaborating with Hitler's brown shirts, alongside wearing masks to protect their identity, because they're genuinely scared of having their identity revealed to the American public. It is truly terrible in all senses of the word, just terrible. You know how bad your sense of style has to be when a tribe of spider monkey subhumans like Adam Waffen has a greater grasp on the wannabe paramilitary neo-fascist aesthetic. Meanwhile, every single member of the Patriot Front looks like they're gonna do my taxes. Poorly do my taxes, mind you. Oh no, you called the LinkedIn Legion. Whatever will I do? And the most fascinating part about this is, somewhere in a basement underneath Berlin, Adolf Hitler's Hugo Boss fashion plug is just rolling in his grave right now because of this bullshit right here. When the Patriot Front attempted to provoke people with the intention of inciting violence at an LGBTQ+ pride in the park event in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, 31 of them, including Timmy Rousseau, were detained and arrested, being charged with conspiracy to incite a riot. Can you guess how the Patriot Front reacted to being detained by police officers? Mind you, this is the face of the very government and deep state they supposedly despise for corrupting America. They were intimidated, afraid, and pissing their pants in compliance. And since I'm grilling his sense of style anyway, let's take a moment to focus a little bit more on Timmy R. Rousseau's little cowboy hat. Hey bud, I'm glad you're having fun LARPing as Napoleon, but I'm sorry to burst your bubble, little man. All of your drip gives me the impression that your Patriot Front raided the bargain bins from Hobby Lobby during the 4th of July. As for the legion of zygote parasites following Rousseau around, forcing your own men to buy Lululemon athletic wear in 5'11" khaki utility pants with their own money does not give off the appearance of athleticism or even decent leadership. This kind of Caucasian incompetence should bring Yakubian smite upon you. But I digress. The Patriot Front is not a threat to American society because they would instantly get squad wiped in a single Baltimore hood, let alone a beef with the federal government. I'm more insulted by the thought of my tax dollars being wasted incarcerating these sentient butt plugs. In my opinion, we should send them back to their respawn point at Cracker Barrel until they've learned to stop being a bunch of stupid ass tweakers. That's the issue with these fucking baboons though. They put on khaki dress pants and their little tight-fitting shirts and suddenly think they're some sort of far-right Patrick Bateman. Like, the police even snatched Timmy's little cowgirl hat from him. You can see it lying on the hood of an officer's squad car from the footage when he's arrested. You might want to get a new leader if this guy is supposed to lead you into a revolution or a race war, because getting your hat snatched is severely weak sauce, man. For reference, remember when Chief Keef threatened to obliterate the entire state of New Jersey for someone snatching his chain? Rousseau, the supposed leader of a militarized neo-Nazi group, has his cowboy hat, his staple iconic cowboy hat, snatched and goes, "No, Mr. Officer, please don't pound my Aryan butthole too hard." And man, Timmy, it must be kind of hard to act like a cowboy when they've taken your hat, huh? Don't worry. There's still time to make a Brokeback Mountain 2 if you're wanting to double down on the cowboy bit. Now, it's not just their fits that are bad, and they're real fucking bad, mind you, but the Patriot Front are self-described American ethno-nationalists, and despite that oxymoron of an ideology, they're proudly humiliating the stars and stripes by waving around these weird, inbred knockoff versions of the American flag that only further makes their already embarrassing aesthetic even worse. Now, for the non-terminally online members of my audience, I'm sure you haven't recognized it yet, but as far as I can tell, this little flag they're waving isn't even a real flag flown by some American fascist party in the 50s that they've co-opted. No, this is a slightly edited version of the flag that fascist America used to use in Hearts of Iron 4, because of course it is. I get that they're trying to go for the legitimate white supremacist organization vibe, but how can you even attempt to sell me this narrative when your iconography is from a video game released in 2016? Are you even fucking trying? Despite Timmy and his gaggle of barely sentient used condoms, seemingly having the worst wardrobe department ever assembled, there is a method to their madness. The tight shirts and baggy pants are meant to make themselves look bigger and stronger. The tight shirt will emphasize their no doubt steroid-rotted gut, and the baggy pants helps draw your attention away from their 4mm thick chicken legs. They want to seem scarier and more dangerous than they actually are, in a pitiful attempt to intimidate others when there's a pack of them running around like chimps throwing their shit around everywhere. In reality, what they are is a warband of incompetent monkeys who are gonna brandish a weapon in front of the wrong person, God willing, someday soon, and get put on the world's breeziest t-shirt. Just because one out of every 2 members is brandishing a fucking Captain Made in China shield doesn't make you guys a competent fighting force. I'm not complaining though, because it's not gonna burn my ass when something goes horribly wrong because you trogs, for some reason, decided to follow what appears to be a racist gardenome into a race war. In a world that believes 90% of us Americans either possess the intelligence of Enrico Fermi or is gun-toting dipshit drunkard Hicks, you've definitely made us appear more credible. Great job at restoring the American identity, guys. The more footage I see of these guys, the more I enjoy doing this whole YouTube thing, because it gets easier and easier the more effort you put into it. Like, what do you mean that these guys aren't just a belligerent clone army of Dale Gribbles out to conquer Arlen, Texas? You can tell that these boys are double layering their clothing, trying to look tough, but it's hard to sell tough in a women's medium. Please, someone from this organization just answer this one question. How the fuck do you guys pretend to be the face of modern masculinity and strength when your entire entourage of malnourished marauders weighs less than their fictional girlfriends? I know. It's hard to imagine these twants being remotely intimidating, since they all look like they died from drinking apple cider. But I digress. If you aren't already full of secondhand embarrassment after seeing what these clowns think style is, try to regain your bearings, because we ain't done yet.
In this town, we get blown. Everyone hail to the homo song. Come, 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 yeah.
Online far-right movements are some of the most peculiar entities in existence. Modern problems and modern solutions, right? You could have Eric from Burlington, Vermont remarking on Twitter that the German Democratic Republic was the most ideological pure form of Marxist-Leninism, while Ramesh Patel from Gujarat, India is arguing for ethnic cleansing of Hispanic Americans in Texas. When you let everyone cast their hat into the ring, sometimes you get a fucked up hat. It's funny when it comes to national democracies that affect global geopolitics, but it's truly hilarious when it instigates digital race wars on TikTok. It is extraordinarily easy to find far-right fanboys on the internet, because this is YouTube, and you want to listen to some more on Yap while you scuff down your DoorDash Wingstop. I've already done the searching for you. I'm excited to see what the last frontier of our generation has to say about Thomas Rousseau and the Patriot Front. Please note that these are not normal members of society, but TikTok alright glazed ghouls who cling to the most confident gibbon out of their pack of monkeys. First of all, I'd love to start off with my favorite example, Ian, the Indonesian white supremacist. You may be familiar with the fact that Indonesia is not renowned for their cracker barrels, or the fact that Indonesia is a fucking Muslim Southwest Asian country with almost zero white people, whose largest export to the world is Asian Muslims and Ian Miles Chong. But that's a slightly different Ian. No way, is he seriously Indian? Not Indian, Indonesian? He's Malaysian! Cory, he's Malaysian.
Oh, did I just do a racism?
Bad. I'm not, you fix that through editing, that's on you. Anyways, how do we know that he's Indonesian? I could be wrong, ignorant, and bigoted. Ian is an Anglophone name after all, and to that I say, let's translate his bio. Is this the peak of internet neo-Nazis? A depressed, emo, Indonesian white supremacist whose chances of statistically being even 1/36 Caucasian is astronomically absurd. Art, truly imitates life. For our next contestant on Stink Game, we have user Shamansky, who adores Thomas Rousseau in the same fashion as a teenage girl obsessing over Jared Padalecki in 2008. These alt-right boy crushes are beginning to raise concerns about the ideological purity of these individuals. He posted an edited image of Thomas Rousseau from the Hearts of Iron 4 mod, The Fire Rises. Now, I actually don't mind the mod. I've played it a few times. It's Dark Brandon. However, posting a purposely cropped image of another man you idolize risked violating the whole "we hate homosexuals" policy that the Patriot Front has strictly implemented. And don't forget about No Life 1488 posting soy jacks in response to someone calling Thomas Rousseau a big fat glowing fed. But proceeding on to a screenshot of his TikTok profile, you can see that Thomas Rousseau clearly reposted by this glazing goober from a separate post. This isn't even an edit about the Patriot Front directly. It's about Thomas Rousseau. I would bet money that Shamansky wants to tame Rousseau's strange, but that's just me. These metaphorical internet hyenas just gorge themselves in constant political discourse, even amongst their ideological allies. This is why the alt-right movements will never go anywhere, because their discourse is about as productive as an Overwatch competitive game. If you remember our previous subject, Ian the Aryan Indonesian, his crucial downfall was leaving his TikTok profile bio in his native tongue. However, I believe Shamansky did the opposite, and Google translated something edgy from English into German. This is a common trend amongst a specific subreddit of American alt-right internet incels, the Save Europa boy failure species. They are known for making pitiful attempts to rebrand themselves by identifying with their long assimilated ethnic identity. Sometimes they don't even have any relation to the ethnicity that they are manifesting. For example, someone with an ancient, obsolete German-American ancestry from 200 years ago, pretending to be fresh off the boat from Hamburger Essen. So, without further ado, let's translate that bio! That's a rather silly surprise. The common, "Why are you looking at my bio?" trend. But maybe this guy honestly does sprechen die Deutsch. However, I'm not convinced yet. Further inspecting our second test subject, Shamansky's handle is Philip KSM. As you may know, Philip is not a name native to the German language, but actually hailing from the Greek language, meaning lover of horses. Is Shamansky, or Philip, if you will, a brony? I can't tell you for certain. But this information, alongside him reposting content geared towards the niche American political community, he is either an Ameribu European, which is rare, or more likely, another LARPer who sincerely believes they're a German soul in an American body. Like trans-nationalism, I don't know what you'd even call it. Oh yeah, and I completely glazed over this. Filipski's odds of participating as an American LARPing as a German has risen to approximately 90%. Did you ever think it was going to be anything otherwise? I've been working on this script for about 2 months now, and honestly, I'm tired of seeing the last defenders of estrogen on this cursed Google Doc, so we're going to end it off with a treat for all of you. To close out this video, we're going to take a little dive down the rabbit hole into the specific niche discovered by me, and allow me to introduce you people into GeoWaffen. GeoWaffen is a relatively small TikTok account with only a few thousand followers, but the views this account gets is enough to fully populate a medium-sized city. So keep that perspective in mind as we delve deeper. This account is dedicated to making the most bafflingly cringy neo-Nazi funk edits of an Italian TikTok model named Gio Scoti. Miss Scoti is your average TikTok model, a few million followers. Content usually consists of her lip-syncing to a camera to some indie record, a time-tested tradition of TikTok, unsurprisingly carried by her being a admittedly attractive woman with some becoming infatuated with her. Now, if you aren't terminally online, you're probably thinking, oh, she's just some beautiful white woman that these losers thrust their Aryan goddess fantasies onto. And you'd be right, except for a little detail that most of the internet forgot. In early 2022, Geoscody went viral over the internet after a picture of her with short hair was posted and completely blew up. You may be wondering, what makes this photo so special? Well, because she became the face of ancient Greek pedophile fantasies.
What the fuck?
See, hold on, bear with me now. The caption that accompanied the photo was later parroted around the town was, this is what a 13-year-old boys looked like in ancient Greece. You wonder why they are all gay pedophiles. Shit, I would be one too. Now, I don't know if this guy truly is a Hindustani lion. He could be Indian, could be a white boy from Tennessee. Chances of them being an online white nationalist, roughly the same. However, the ancient Greek towelboy, a meme that's hook, line, and sinker, is grown men fantasizing about being gay pedophiles during the time when Aristotle was rap battling Diogenes on the steps of Athens. A subsection of the alt-right latched onto this, and the ancient Greek towelboy meme became a staple of their humor for a few good months, and another good few months a year later, when someone posted the same exact meme in 2023.
Shout out to my man Ernesto Assaultacunas. What's up, baby? I see you know what you do out there with the Liberty Swingers, alright? Go easy on the young ones, my man. I saw you on TV last night. Wasn't clean, what you say? I can't keep myself. Stay off that television set. You're talking crazy, looking crazy. Your clothes look crazy. You look ridiculous. What do you mean? What age are we talking about here? What do you mean, buddy? We're gonna keep our children away from you, my brother, alright? Stop touching the little ones.
Dude, someone's gotta stop Hindustani lion. Anyways, this so-called meme eventually reached Geoscody, and she was rightfully baffled and confused by it, probably horrified. Now, circling back to GeoWaffen, Geoscody became the face of a niche subsection of neo-Nazi editors, becoming their go-to, quote-unquote, Aryan waifu. And this GeoWaffen account is no different. Every post from this account is the same thing. Schizophrenic flashing lights and Nazi imagery accompanied with random black and white video of Geoscody dancing while the worst music you've ever heard is fucking blaring in your ears. So you may be wondering why I'm focusing so hard on this seemingly random TikTok account that has no real relation to Timmy or his Patriot Front. Well, the reasoning is simple. These are the kind of people that Timmy and his circus inspire. These are their fans. Teenagers sitting in their suburban homes in either Delaware or Bombay, making cringe edits projecting their sexual and ideological fantasies on a completely unaware and unconsenting woman. These are Hitler's strongest soldiers in the modern era. This is the best they have to offer. Neither Thomas or the Patriot Front are people to be feared. What they are punching bags to be laughed at and beaten back into marginalization, who should be afraid to leave their cum caves, let alone march down the street dressed like PC Principal with their Captain Made in China shields. If there's a moral lesson to be absorbed from this video, it's that you should not be afraid of these malicious hate groups who terrorize our communities. You should know that deep down, they're all spineless losers who deserve ridicule and isolation. They'll threaten you, they'll say they'll dox you, and they'll try to intimidate you. But deep down, you, I, and the Patriot Front all know they are outnumbered and outgunned. Be not afraid, friends. You have the power to fight back, and these cretins can't do anything about that. They just don't want you to know that. Now, I hate saying goodbyes, but this video has been in production for a while, and I hope you all enjoyed it. This video, just like its subject matter, is not to be taken too seriously. Go on and live your best life. That's the best way to fight back against radicalism and turning into a comically evil douchebag. Remember, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And of course, I'll see y'all around in especially good health. Until next time, everyone, play me some Silk Song.
Fuck Off, overproduced by Martin Hannett, take 4.
Why can't you relate yourself? What we say is for yourself. Get hardcore, like your hair, and just a lesson.